Welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm Albert Chiu. The U.S. China trade war continues to escalate. Recently, Chinese state media reported that China will retaliate with 6 measures. One is suspending cooperation with the United States on combating fentanyl. According to official U.S. government statistics, more than 70,000 Americans die from fentanyl each year. About 97% of the illegal fentanyl entering the U.S. is made in Mexico, primarily using chemicals sourced from China. The U.S. has long urged China to strengthen controls, but now China may be changing its stance. How might China's use of fentanyl as a leverage point bring about key changes in U.S.-China relations? Joining us today are Lai I-chung, Prospect Foundation President, and Yuan I, National Chengchi University Institute of International Relations Adjunct Research Fellow. A very warm welcome to both on the show. Trump's tariff policy has caused global trade turbulence. However, by examining the changes in the tariff policy, it becomes clear that fentanyl has become a focal point of the U.S.-China confrontation. In March, U.S. Senator Steve Daines, a Republican from Montana, stated during his visit to Beijing that the two sides could only resume negotiations if the issue of fentanyl raw materials entering the U.S. is entirely resolved. So, President, please briefly help us to understand why Trump is so focused on the fentanyl issue and how does fentanyl pose a threat to the U.S. national security?
The fentanyl issue is not just raised this time, because in year 2018, Trump already raised this with the President Xi Jinping in their meeting in Argentina. And at that time, the China admit and would like to cooperate with the United States in stemming the fentanyls from the producing in China. And in exchange for about 200 billion the Chinese product tariff exemption from the United States. Originally, the Trump was proposing a 25% tariff for those 200 billion the Chinese exports. So that was the discussion about the fentanyl in the summit meeting for the first time, but that was in year 2018. And then year 2023, in the Biden administration, similar discussion also emerged. So that we are talking about a fentanyl issue that's cross-administration. That's not just about Trump, but also Biden raised this with Chinese counterparts about how the issue needs to be addressed. And China, in both occasions, agreed that China will stop, at least try to make the effort to make the production of the fentanyl, either that's illegal or they will have a very strong law enforcement to prevent them from producing things like those. However, if you look at the number of the fentanyl in the United States, in year 2016, we already saw about the 43,000 deaths because of fentanyl. And the year 2023, that number raised to 76,000. So basically almost like double. But then if you look at the number from year 2015 to year 2023, about the people taking the fentanyls, it actually raised 7 times. So irrespective of the Chinese promises, the fentanyl continue to rampage in the United States and become very, very serious issues. And even the current Trump administration, some of the Trump people, they have their family member as a victim of the fentanyl. So this is not just about the general society or the policy issue. To some of them, it's a very, very personal issues. So I think that there's no surprise that why Trump will believe this is a very important issue need to be addressed.
Professor Yuan, also help us to further understand why the fentanyl issue become the first trigger for the trade war, because there's a connection seemingly between the two elements, where still we need to understand why that is the connection there. With Trump especially blaming not only China but also Mexico and Canada for failing to address this problem.
I think one has to note, this phenomenon has been taking place not long ago, with the event of such a very powerful, destructive pill. Create a nationwide disasters. So beginning from the Obama administration, to be correct, I think each successive U.S. administration president has taken note of this trend. But it was not until very, very recently that after the rebuttal from the United States, especially from this administration, the China this March finally publicized a white paper to address this issue once and for all. Very, very comprehensive. One could have a look about it and to note the very stage of development on the issue, which cultivated in the first turn of Donald Trump's administration to initiate a punitive action on this, but remain to be so with this annual casualty. So I think this administration must wants to raise the issue very loud, to have some response from China.
Okay, according to the U.S. CDC, more than 107,000 people in the U.S. died from drug overdoses in 2023, with about 70% of those deaths linked to fentanyl. The abuse of fentanyl is often referred to as a modern-day opium war. In a recent interview with Fox News, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio believes that China could stop the flow of fentanyl at any time, but has deliberately chosen not to regulate it. So my second question still goes to President, is that what do you make of Rubio's claim that China is deliberately allowing fentanyl to flow into the United States? Because Reuters also reported that 2 Chinese biotech company executives were convicted in New York for smuggling fentanyl precursors. They sold over 200 kilograms of fentanyl precursors to undercover DEA agents posing as drug dealers. So claiming they had many clients in the U.S. and in Mexico and the United States. Could also provide a technology for producing finished fentanyls.
I think that's an episode about the DEA agent playing undercover and then just busted 2 Chinese who would like to sell about 200 kilograms the fentanyl to the United States through their network. That is evidence about how Chinese company, they play a role in this phenomenon. Basically, in the United States, about the fentanyl, it's like a U.S., they are the consumers. And the one that transport those drugs into the United States, basically through the Mexico, and a few of them probably through Canada. But Mexico had the majority of them, like 98%, even 99.8%. And for Canada, what the record show is that about 2% or even 0.2%. So from Canada, it's very small, but from Mexico, it's a lot. But the way why the Mexico plays such an important role in transporting this fentanyl into the United States is because there are several drug lords in Mexico, and also through what they have done in the past about the cocaine or the cocaine cocktail or the heroin, about those drugs experience that already they have a network. But basically right now, instead of transporting the heroin or the cocaine into the United States, right now they are shipping those fentanyl drugs produced in China to the United States. And fentanyl is very different from the so-called narcotic, in a sense that it's basic synthetic drugs. So it is a chemical that combined together make it as a drug. And to a large extent, it's about like a pain reliever. It can initiate very quickly, and with the boosting effects about 50 to 100 times than the opium. We know the opium sometimes, like even in the you hear coughing, about the fluid for you to inhale to stop the coughing. There's an element of, like an opium in it. So the fentanyl initially was initiated and produced as drugs for the pain reliever. But of course, during the 20 years of the U.S. war on the terror and soldiers working in the Iraq and also the anti-terrorism war, that kind of casualty and also the lasting effects, and when they return from home, from the war zone to home, that a lot of soldiers, they have the physical amplitude or the other physical damage to them. And a lot of them, they rely on those drugs in order to sustain. So this basically helps that why the drugs already have a easy consumer in the United States than the previously like the narcotic. But then I think it is the easily available drugs about those, and then how that mixed with others started to become the widespread phenomenon in the United States. And the U.S. right now try to stop that. First, they try to stop the transportation, but also try to go to the source. China stopped producing those drugs, and the state, the Chinese state government, need to be responsible for stemming the production of it.
And also, we know that alcoholism is very severe, pervasive in the United States, right? And a lot of people, on the one hand, very alcoholic, but also, have the drug abuse, and that combined becomes a very severe addiction, and also, therefore, a societal problem. Professor Yuan, could you also comment on this, China deliberately allowing fentanyl to flow into the United States, and even two Chinese buyer company executives were convicted in New York?
I would like to shed some light from the other side of the source. As I said already, that the March, the Chinese government publicized it's the first time is a white paper addressing on the issue. Let me quote exactly one sentence. After fentanyl-like substance were listed in the whole category, China has not received any further notification from the U.S. side that such a substance have been seized from China. So this is a contradiction to what the U.S. proclaimed. Okay. So I think it takes two to tango. But this is the first time the Chinese government put into writing about their actions. All in all, I think the two accused, it is a state-sponsored action. I think that will be needs to be substantiated. Neither Rubio made such a claim. And yet, such a precursor needs to be addressed. So this is something require a bilateral cooperation. I would say China, all in all, probably took the very passive attitude toward this, all right? Because they consider this that they're not their problem to begin with. Now they understood the U.S. demanded that China still should do something heavily.
Well, actually, a follow-up for you, Professor, is that according to Bloomberg, the fentanyl issue has become a bargaining chip for China in negotiation with the United States. China, like what they say, hopes to strengthen controls on fentanyl precursor exports in exchange for an exemption from additional tariff. So how do you view, from China's perspective, its use of fentanyl card? Could it target vulnerable points for the United States?
No doubt about it. People argued, especially there's a report coming out from Brookings. Well, it is argued that it is a leverage in negotiation. It is a asymmetrical warfare game, and China also denial, and they were very much to use it in this ongoing geopolitical fight with the United States, because it costs little for China, and always harms the U.S. and it's hard to prove. So so far, I think according to the Chinese statement, there hasn't been any newly developed accusation from the United States. That wonders what makes them to so sure that they could do whatever they feel like it, putting that line of reasoning to rebuttal the United States. And yet, I think using that as a political tool to mediate it, the ongoing geopolitical rivalry would be something that needs to be addressed.
Okay, President Lai, some experts argue that fentanyl is merely a label used to give Trump an excuse for initiating the trade war as a recognizable cause. So how do you analyze Trump's tariff policy towards the world, especially China? So what do you think is the real objective behind it?
First of all, I do not accept the interpretation that Trump needs the fentanyl issue to initiate the so-called tariff war, because if you look at the reciprocal tariff, he placed on everyone, almost everyone in the whole world. And none of the word about the fentanyl ever been out. So basically, I would say that the fentanyl itself is a serious issue that the Trump believe this very strongly need to put a stop on it. And in order to put a stop on it, you need to go to the source about the production. You also need to go to the transportation network. So that's why the Mexico and Canada have been put on a notice. And also the Chinese have been specifically put on notice about you need to be more active in stopping the production rather than just being passive. And I will say that when we look at the whole the tariff war, right at the beginning, of course, it came from the fentanyl. And Trump was doing, what Trump did was that due to the not acceptable response about the demand for the stopping the fentanyl, so he started to initiate the tariff war on both the China, the Canada, and Mexico. And then when the Canada and Mexico show something that they're willing to work with the Trump, and then some of the tariff issue, stop no longer talk about those. But the Chinese, that's a very different stories. And now we have this, a second stage about like the reciprocal tariff war. So basically we're talking about, although similar phenomenon, but very different sources about the issues. And right now we already passed about the fentanyl. Fentanyl will continue to be staying there and as an issue to be discussed and trying to solve.
All right, Trump has raised tariffs on China to 145%, which is pretty high, more than 100%, escalating tensions in U.S.-China relations. However, Trump still hopes to meet with Xi Jinping. According to CNN, Trump said, "Xi Jinping is my friend, I like him." Were the anticipated Trump-Xi summit originally planned for April or even June still happen? Many people are very concerned about this possible meeting between the two superpower leaders. Even as he wages a trade war against China, Trump is still sending signals of goodwill to Xi. Sometimes it doesn't look that way, sometimes it does. What do you think is his objective, Professor?
For Trump, Donald Trump's dual approach, a very savvy approach. But and also it operated in such a dynamic balancing act between the two sides. So the people wonder to what extent that this dual approach will work, meaning that that he wishes to meet in person with Xi, but people felt that it is very unlikely at this moment that he could reach that goal because given his style, that Xi might be very, very sensitive to the sporadic action he would take each time open to the public. On the one hand, also I think the very duality caused somewhat confusion to Chinese about, especially to Xi Jinping at this moment. So I'll wait for a while to see. To see what will happen.
President, comment on this dual approach by Donald Trump.
I think the way that Trump approached this and Xi Jinping saw this, they came from a very different angle. When Xi Jinping saw the bilateral summit meeting as a result of the serious negotiation, and so the bilateral summit meeting will be a demonstration about the result that it already achieved. But for Trump, the summit meeting is a start of a series of negotiation and other engagement. And then it is a process that will lead to something else. So the Xi Jinping saw this as the vindication about what they already agreed. Trump see this as a starting of something they need to negotiate it. So I think they came from very different angle. And also I think Xi Jinping, through the experience that he had in the first Trump administrations, that Xi Jinping came all the way from China to United States in year 2017, April for the Mar-a-Lago meeting. Right. It seems to be good, but then 1 year later, the whole trade war started. And also Xi Jinping believed that year 2017, even November, when Xi Jinping entertained Trump his at the Forbidden City, enjoyed the walk. But then the U.S. China relations since year 2018 just going downhill. So the Xi Jinping is very cautious about the meeting himself. And with the Trump, his repeated plea or urge for the meeting, Xi Jinping started to see this as a challenge from Trump. As Trump is challenging Xi Jinping, do you dare to see me or not? And so Xi Jinping would not take it very lightly and pleasantly as this meeting should go. So I think that is another way of looking at the whole development. Of course, right now, the tariff, especially after the April the 9th and 10th, Trump decided that the rest of the whole world about the tariff only 10%, and for the 90 days of the pause and for the negotiation. But for China, it's going to be 125. Of course, right now 145%. And the Chinese started to believe that this reciprocal tariff war is about China.
Right.
So when Xi Jinping talked with Trump, it will be like, I am talking under your pressure. I do not want to be like that. So I will say that the bilateral summit meeting right now, at least before the 90 days of the renegotiation and pause period, it will not happen before that.
But what do you think of the sentences that Trump frequently say that Xi Jinping is my friend, he's a smart guy? Do you think that Xi Jinping is going to be very serious about this type of expression anymore?
No, I think Xi Jinping believes that this is just a very
very diplomatic talk.
Not diplomatic,
even
but
Trump
very sneaky
talk.
and calculated. And this is a challenge. This is not a welcome.
Okay, all right. Professor, you want to add up to this?
I think the people also will compare Donald Trump's dealing with Putin and Kim of the North Korea. So they come to the conclusion, well, this is a gesture. Though
Don't take it seriously.
People won't pay serious attention no longer.
Okay. All right. Beijing has stated it will stand firm in the ongoing U.S. China trade war, like what two of you mentioned. So what do you think Beijing is unwilling to back down? What's the calculation now from the perspective of Xi Jinping, the strong power leader? If the situation continues, what consequences might we expect to see between the U.S. and China facing each other in the end? President?
I think there are two calculations and all leads to the same result. The first one is that right now under the strong pressure from the United States, so the weakness will invite more demand from the United States. So they cannot appear to be weak. And the second is that Xi Jinping, he needs to placate, at least for domestic audience, he's a leader that can stand up to the foreign pressure. And right now, the United States is putting everything on China, especially it's China against U.S., probably with the rest of the other countries. And Xi Jinping needs to appear to be very strong to lead this nation to out the rest of the whole world about the pressure. So that in both calculation of both sentiment, it will lead China to appear more stronger and try to outlast Trump. And also, I think another factor is that April the 9th and 10th, when Trump decided to just for the rest of the reciprocal tariff countries, only for around 9%. And then there was also the news about bond market, how that affects Trump's calculations. To some within the Chinese community, they believe that Trump is malleable, so that Trump can easily change his decision due to the volatile market, especially in the bond market, that he can take a U-turn just like that. So for Chinese, they believe that, some of them, they believe that if China can stand firm and stay longer, then the Trump will be the first one to blink.
Okay, the final question for both of you is that even though the abuse of fentanyl in the U.S. seems to irritate Trump, his top priority, like what we said, remains addressing the trade deficit, an issue where, in his view, not only China but also Taiwan have taken advantage of the United States. So is there anything the Taiwanese government or Taiwanese Americans can do to help ease Trump's concerns about the trade imbalance with Taiwan, especially in the context of the U.S. war on illicit drug use, President?
Taiwan is definitely not related with any fentanyl issues, so that is off the table. And also, I think the April 11th, the Taiwan-U.S. the negotiation started it. And Taiwan is probably the top 3 countries that the U.S. engaged with about the tariff talk, followed by the Taiwan is the number 3, the first one is Vietnam, and second one is Israel. We do not know the 4th and 5th. So I think that to a certain extent, Taiwan is in a much better position because the President Lai I-chung also mentioned that Taiwan intends to purchase more, invest more, and also intending to address the issue about the non-tariff barrier as well as the so-called governmental subsidies. About the currency manipulation that a lot of people accuse, not just about Taiwan, but also probably other countries about the devaluation of their own currency and over-evaluation about the dollars, that probably will enter the negotiation in terms of the so-called Malaga Accord talk. It's not just about U.S. Taiwan, it will be around a lot of countries. So that will be a very different issue of negotiation. But I would say that for Taiwan, it's also important to let the United States know that the service trade, that has never been part of the calculation, and you enjoy a tremendous amount of the surplus in terms of service trade. And the military arms sale, that also is not factored into the bilateral sales, and a tariff has been placed on Taiwan. So those are the important items that need to be taken into account, as well as how Taiwan itself is integral for U.S. competitiveness and especially AI global leadership. So it is actually, it's not Taiwan that takes advantage of the United States, but Taiwan is enabling the United States to be the leader of the whole world. I think that message needs to get through.
Okay, Professor Yuan and President Lai, thank you for great insights in this episode. Like our show, subscribe to Taiwan Talks. See you soon.